D. Maggie Smith passing at 89, it really is the end of an era, isn't it? It makes you think, for a lot of us, we know her from Harry Potter or from Downton Abbey, but there's this whole other career there before and alongside those iconic roles.
Absolutely.
We've got this Sky News article that kind of lays out her whole journey. And
it's amazing.
yeah, it's incredible, like just how early on that talent shines through.
Yeah, can you imagine being 18 years old and you're already on stage, you're doing Shakespeare?
I know.
That takes, like, a certain kind of presence, wouldn't you say?
Oh, absolutely. Talk about diving into the deep end. And you know what's so interesting? I was reading through this article. Like, early on, she actually considered herself a singer and a dancer.
Really?
It changes how you picture her, doesn't it?
It really does.
The woman who perfects that withering stare later on.
Exactly. Exactly. And that's just such a wonderful detail because it speaks to her range, even back then. And it wasn't just like, oh, I dabble in singing and dancing. She actually performed in reviews. She honed those skills.
Wow.
And it makes you think that versatility she had early on,
right,
that's crucial for an actor, I think, for their longevity. Wouldn't you agree?
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
You've got to inhabit different characters, different world. And it makes me think about, we're talking about this early stage of her career, and we get this pivotal moment where she joins the National Theatre Company, and the article mentions she was actually noticed by Laurence Olivier himself.
Oh, wow.
Now, for anyone who's not super familiar with theater history,
big deal.
This is like being, I don't know, like knighted by the Queen or something. It's a huge deal.
Huge. And, it's so important to remember, too, that this is the early days of the National Theatre Company.
Right.
Which, went on to be such this hugely influential force in British theater. So she wasn't just lucky to kind of be there. They saw something in her.
Exactly.
From the very beginning.
And that talent, there's no denying it. And speaking of undeniable, we've got to talk about the Oscars.
Oh, yeah.
Not just one, but two.
Amazing.
Best Actress for the Prime of Miss Jean Brodie in 1969.
Oh, such a fantastic film. And, talk about range in that performance.
I know.
She embodies that character who is complex, flawed even, but with such nuance and power, really.
And then she wins Best Supporting Actress for California Suite in 1978.
Wow.
So this is decades before Hogwarts, before even Downton Abbey.
Right.
Dame Maggie Smith had already conquered Hollywood.
She had. To win an Oscar is a feat in itself, but to win in both leading and supporting categories?
Unheard of.
It's almost unheard of, and it really speaks volumes about her, not just as an actress, but as an artist. It tells me she wasn't afraid to take on any role, big or small, as long as it challenged her.
Right.
As long as it allowed her to kind of explore these depths of human experience.
Which makes this next bit from the article so intriguing, I have to say, because Dame Maggie Smith actually once said that she didn't find her roles in Harry Potter or Downton Abbey satisfying.
Interesting.
And I think, I imagine a lot of people hearing that would be like, what?
Yeah.
Because those are such beloved, iconic roles.
Right. And I think it's easy to hear that and maybe misunderstand. It's not about ingratitude or anything like that. But remember, at this point in her career, she'd already reached the pinnacle of success in so many ways.
Right.
And so perhaps those roles, while offering maybe a different kind of fulfillment,
right,
they didn't push her in the same way that maybe a smaller, less commercially driven project might.
Right. So we're not necessarily talking about bigger is less satisfying.
Right.
But we're talking about the creative challenges that a role offers maybe.
Exactly. And it's a theme we see throughout art history, isn't it? The works that an artist themselves might hold most dear,
right,
sometimes aren't the ones that resonate the most with the public, or vice versa, of course.
Mm-hmm. Right. It reminds you that they're allowed to have these personal connections to their work that might not always align with popular opinion.
Absolutely.
Yeah, it really is fascinating when you think about it that way. It makes you wonder, we're looking at the scope of a career, right? From Shakespeare on stage early on, all the way to these hugely popular characters later in life. Is there a common thread? Like, what connects those performances?
It's such a good question. And I think if you look closely, what you see again and again with Dame Maggie Smith is this incredible ability to portray a certain kind of strength. Even when it's hidden, maybe it's veiled by wit or a sharp turn of phrase.
Right. Like, even if you think about, we've got Professor McGonagall devoted to the rules, but also she's got that twinkle in her eye, like she might bend them if she needs to.
Absolutely. And that's something we see in her other roles, right? that kind of unshakable spirit.
It's funny because, when I was thinking about this, I was thinking about, Even Violet Crawley in Downton Abbey,
Oh, perfect example.
she's delivering these incredibly witty lines,
Right.
but you always get the sense that she's lived a full life and she's come out the other side
Yeah.
and stronger for it. Exactly.
And I think, those characters, though different in so many ways, there's that refusal to be underestimated, isn't there?
Yeah.
Like, they're not defined by their circumstances. They shape them.
It's funny, she had this incredible comedic timing, but it always felt it was more than just getting a laugh.
Right.
There was this intelligence behind it.
Yes, that's exactly it. The intelligence.
Like she knew what she was doing with every word, every glance.
It was all very deliberate, and whether she was playing a witty dowager or a stern headmistress,
Yes.
there was always this depth to her characters.
Yeah.
You sensed there was always more beneath the surface.
Right. There were layers there to unpack.
Exactly. That's what made her so captivating to watch,
It makes you realize, knowing all of this about her approach to acting, it kind of adds another dimension to those roles.
It does.
Suddenly you're not just watching Professor McGonagall.
Right.
You're watching Dame Maggie Smith's, decades of experience.
Yes.
Her dedication to her craft, and it's all being poured into this one character.
I think, that's the power of understanding an artist's journey, isn't it? It enriches our experience as viewers because we start to see these connections, these echoes of past roles, past experiences, and they're all woven into the fabric of their performance. It adds a whole new level of appreciation, I think.
So for someone listening who maybe only knows her from those later roles, where would you even begin to explore that filmography? I mean, there's so much there.
Oh, it really is. If I had to pick one to start with, at least, I might go with The Lady in the Van from 2015.
Ooh, okay, yeah.
I think it's kind of a perfect distillation
It really does feel that way.
of so much that she did so well.
Based on Alan Bennett. It's a true story. And she plays this woman who lives in a van.
And it's not just quirky for the sake of it.
Right.
Dame Maggie Smith brings such humanity to that role.
Yeah.
You see the layers of her life, the choices that led her there.
Right.
And it makes you think differently, I think, about someone living outside maybe those conventional norms,
It's such a good point. And I think that's what always stayed with me about her career. Even in her 80s, taking on that role, it's she was still, defying these expectations, pushing
That's
boundaries. And
fresh.
it makes you think about, what women should be playing at any age. And she blows those out of the water.
She does. She really does. She reminds us that talent, great talent, it transcends any sort of limitation like that.
It really does.
And the Lady in the Van lets you see all of it. Her dramatic range is there, her comedic timing. It's all there, beautifully rendered.
So to our listener, if you're looking to go beyond the familiar, maybe start with The Lady in the Van. It's different, it's moving, and it really does show you just this whole other side of her talent.
And I think that's what we're left with, isn't it? This sense of a life so well lived and lived on her own terms,
Yeah.
Never afraid to take risks or to challenge yourself. And even when a role maybe wasn't personally fulfilling,
Right.
that dedication to the craft, it always shone through.
It's that dedication. That's what makes her a legend.
It is.
You look at those performances, and even if you didn't know the name, Dame Maggie Smith, before you saw it,
Right.
you felt it, that there was someone who understood how to tell a story,
Yes.
how to deliver a line, how a look, how all of it can stay with you long after the credits have rolled.
It really does make you think about legacy a bit differently.
Doesn't it?
It's not just the roles, but it's what does an artist bring to those roles,
Right.
the mark they leave on their art form.
Well, to Dame Maggie Smith, we say thank you for the wit, the wisdom, and that unwavering commitment that you just mentioned to your craft.
Absolutely.
You will be so missed, but your work will continue to inspire truly for generations to come.
No